young woman, Irina, worked as a secretary in the regional prosecutor's office. She was 32 years old, and for the second year she celebrated her birthday all alone. The fact is that Irina suffered from infertility. She desperately wanted to have children, but simply physically could not have them. She didn't have a husband either, who needs an essentially dead body. By the age of 30, she began to completely wither away from hopelessness. She had a lot of friends, but even the best of them could not help her cope with the increasingly frequent attacks of depression. One day an incident happened to her, which some might call the most unfair thing in the world, while others might call it a miracle. One day, in an attack of another depression, Irina sat on a bench in the park and looked tiredly into the evening forest. She could no longer cry. She always had a strong character. This allowed her to somehow hold on and not lose friends. Everyone who knew her spoke of her as a strong woman who was never afraid of anything. Other men were often afraid and respected of her. But few people understood that she had to become strong. Otherwise, the pain of not being able to have children would have dragged her into a noose long ago. The woman had been sitting on a bench in front of the forest for more than 3 hours. Perhaps she had not even intended to go home on this summer night if not for an accident. She saw an unusual picture. A little girl of about 14, dressed in a strange white robe with huge blackened spots, wandered among the trees, constantly looking back at people. While constantly trying to be less noticeable, if someone was looking at her, she mechanically tried to hide behind a tree trunk. The girl herself was somehow strange. She had long, snow-white hair that had not been washed for a very long time, and very large, round eyes, bright red. Irina, being an employee of the prosecutor's office, called the girl to her place. "Hey, baby, come here," she said quietly, waving her palm towards her. The girl, seeing Irina, first hid behind a tree trunk and stared at the woman with her large peepers for some time. "Don't be afraid. Come here. I won't hurt you." Strange as it was, the girl came out from behind the tree and began to approach Irina with slow, careful steps. Here another strange thing became noticeable. The girl did not move like a person. She had a certain animal grace and smoothness of movements. Just like now, for example, she approached Irina. Exactly like a cat, with the only difference being that the girl walked on her feet. But as soon as the girl came close to Irina, she sat down like a dog, even resting her thin arms on the asphalt. "Well, just like a cat." "What are you doing here?" asked Irina. "I'm looking for my mother," the girl answered in a strange, hoarse voice. "Are you lost?" "My mother is missing. I haven't been able to find her for so long. Have you seen my mother?" It seemed that the girl was going to cry. Irina began to understand that it looked like another lost one, and judging by her appearance, she had been wandering the streets for a very long time, perhaps for a month. What can I say? Irina simply could not help but feel sorry for this sweet creature. She herself so wanted to be a mother. And here it was as if the gods were joking. One cannot have children. The second cannot find a mother. "And where do you live?" "I live." The answer is more than strange, as if the girl did not understand what she was being asked about. Of course, Irina could not ignore such an incident. She took the girl to her place. She wanted to help this sweet baby, although deep inside she hoped that her mother would never be found. And what? Irina believed in fate. But what if the girl did not meet her by chance? What if this is fate? Having brought the girl home, the first thing Ira did was drag the girl into the bathroom to wash the girl. As it turned out, the baby was completely dependent on herself. She did not like water and winced in every possible way from water jets. She did not know how to use soap and a washcloth, so Ira had to wash the girl like her own cat. By the way, Irina has been getting animals for a very long time. At first she had a dog, some kind of mongrel, but animals live much less than people. When the dog died, Irina got a cat, Ksiusha, who was also quite old. The lost girl was very dirty. There were very large black spots all over her body, which were very difficult to wash off. It was strange that when the black mud dissolved in water, it turned purple, but Ira didn't attach any importance to this. It couldn't be blood. While washing the girl, Irina noticed a couple more features. The girl had sharp nails, not like a person's. They were strong and more like claws. This was not the last strange thing. Irina had to brush the girl's teeth herself, and it turned out that she was the first to see a toothbrush. The girl's teeth were not normal. They were all sharp as needles. They weren't even teeth, but small bayonets. Not only the fangs, but also the incisors and even the girl's molars were sharpened. It looked like the girl was suffering some kind of congenital deformity. After washing, Irina fed the girl. She devoured everything on both cheeks. It looked like she hadn't eaten for a long time. Ira sat opposite the whole time and was moved by looking at the girl. She managed to get her to talk. It turned out the girl's name was Elisa, and she lives in Elizovo. But she doesn't remember the specific address and name of her mother. She always called her mother Mom and nothing else. When the girl fell asleep, Irina did not leave her side half the night and stroked her hair. Guess what? She decided that Alice was a gift of fate. The next day, Irina contacted the girl through her channels at the police. There was no information on her anywhere. The woman had to submit a petition to the archives. Her friend worked there and agreed to help her. But the case dragged on for a very long time. Kostya had to dig around for a very long time. Days and weeks passed. Alice began to live with Irina. The woman became the happiest in the world, especially on the day when Alice called Ira Mom. She had already forgotten about her request to Kostya. She no longer cared how Alice appeared in her life and why. She was simply happy. However, Irina was always too curious. One day, while washing her daughter's things, she again came across the same robe that the girl was wearing on the day they met. Irina suddenly had an idea. She found out where they wear such robes. These gowns were worn by patients at a psychiatric clinic. Then it became clear where Alice's animal nature came from. Things began to smell like kerosene. Ira understood that she could not part with Alice, but she was simply obliged to find out where Alice came from, and what if, in fact, Ira was hiding a runaway madwoman. Fortunately, there was only one dispensary with a children's department in the entire district. Ira contacted the director of the dispensary by phone. She told all the signs of Alice, named her name, but did not say that she had a girl. She just wanted to get information about Alice. She didn't have to wait long for an answer. She got an answer right away. The director was an old woman and had worked for more than 15 years. She knew many of her patients and, of course, she remembered Alice. In their entire history, they had only one patient with a similar description. This was Elisa Kolodiva, or as the whole team called her, the squirrel. The girl suffered from a congenital mental disorder. She had something like lycanthropy, that is, when a person has the habits of an animal and sometimes manifests itself even in appearance. According to all the descriptions, it turned out that Alice was the same squirrel but one thing. Elisa Kolodiva died at the age of 14. Her body was cremated here. This happened more than 10 years ago. All the love for the girl grew into a feeling of cold fear. What are the chances that this is just a coincidence? The girl could not keep up with the train. Trains did not pass through Yelizovo. The girl could only be local. But how is it possible that she is similar in all descriptions to the girl who died more than 10 years ago? Irina was torn to pieces. On the one hand, she couldn't help but love this sweet girl who calls her mom. On the other hand, she couldn't help but be afraid of her. Who is she? Where did she come from? A couple of days later, Kostya called Irina. He was very excited about something. Ira, listen about your request. I dug up something. I came across a closed case from 1968. The girl, Elisa Kolodiva, a patient at a children's psychiatric clinic, escaped from the hospital. This happened due to the fact that her birth mother stopped visiting her. It is not clear how she managed to escape, but she did. The girl found her home herself and met her mother. Their meeting ended in tears. The girl tore her mother to pieces like a pack of wolves. She killed her mother and then began to attack ordinary passers-by on the street. In short, Alice's tower was demolished. She rushed at everyone who told her no. They couldn't catch her alive. The girl was shot while trying to detain her. Her body was cremated, and her ashes are kept in a mental hospital, where she spent almost her entire life. I don't know who's at your house now, but there are simply no others like your Alice in the city. I don't know what's going on, but please wait for me. I'll come to you now, okay? And please, under no circumstances say no to Alice. Don't even use that word okay. Kostya, I'm afraid. Irina cried into the phone. This is not true. Alice is not a squirrel. She cannot be her. She died a long time ago. This is not Alice. But who is she? Ira, please pull yourself together. I'll come now. Ira did not leave the phone for a long time. She stood in the hallway and sobbed quietly. She simply did not know what to do. Everything that was happening seemed to her to be a farce, but it was logically impossible to find the truth here. Ira came to her senses when she saw Alice standing in the corridor next to the hallway. The girl was holding a headless cat in her arms and stroking her lifeless body with her hand. Alice's entire mouth and nose were covered in cat blood. Irina was horrified and began to slowly back away towards the door. Alice smiled at Ira and quietly whispered, Mom, I'm not your mom. No, I'm not your mom. Kostya got to Ira's house, only in 1 hour. The door to the apartment was not locked. When Kostya went inside, he understood why. Ira tried to escape. She even managed to open the door, but nothing more. The apartment was dark and the lights did not turn on. In the guest room, the guy saw silhouettes. Something rather large, but soft like a bag of hay, was lying on the floor. The silhouette of a red-eyed girl was sitting in a half squat over the body. But in the dark, her eyes weren't just red. They glowed like two scarlet coals in the dark, and her snow-white, sharp teeth, from which blood dripped, also glowed. Kostya slowly reached for the switch and turned on the light. You know, when the light goes out, everything you saw disappears and you begin to see things in the dark differently. As if with the disappearance of the light, the room itself changes. Here it was exactly the opposite. When Kostya turned on the light, Alice disappeared. As if with the light, not only the darkness disappeared, but she herself. All that remained was the body of the torn Irina. She was lying on the floor with broken bones. Her stomach was ripped open, and her intestines were pulled out, looking like they had been chewed. One eye was missing. It was as if it had been sucked out of its socket. The right leg was completely torn off, and all the walls were covered in blood. I ask you, if you meet a girl with long white hair, big, red eyes, sharp teeth, and nails, under no circumstances say no to her.